Lambo, come in. Should probably close
I think it's fine. $10.59. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because I can't see my timestamp here. I just wanted to make sure we're starting on time and ending on time.
Yeah, it's lowercase Mabel 75 exclamation exclamation.
Okay, it's 11.
How we doing, guys?
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Sorry, I took myself off mute too early. So I didn't get prettied up for this meeting, so sorry. I'm John. I'm actually with Coldwell Banker, and Kim reached out to me a few weeks ago, and I've been kind of piggybacking on some of your meetings, so I really wanted to join this one with you.
Awesome. Oh, that's awesome. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, well, we've got 3 of you on the call right now. So it's 11 o'clock. I think we're just going to go ahead and get started. I know it's getting busy for a lot of people right now, so some people may be popping in late. Some people, you know, may come at the tail end of this, but obviously for those of you that are on, we want to really be good stewards of your time. And thank you also. Oh, we see we've got more people popping on.
Just watching.
Thank you all for, you know, like I said, I know it's getting busy, so we appreciate everybody popping on, taking some time to have some coffee with us this morning. I definitely do have coffee with me, or whatever the drink of your choice is.
I've had enough coffee already, so I'll be drinking my water.
Tony, you need coffee.
I will switch to water after this. But so again, thank you guys. For those of you that do not know who we are Tony and Sharice Giangrecos. We are co-rainmakers and co-founders of the Mind Right Realty Group out of the Keller Williams Milwaukee Southwest location. So we were asked to host this coffee with a capper today because our team dynamic is definitely different, I would say, than most teams. I know Charlie can relate to this though. So we are husband and wife, And how the team is structured is there's another couple on our team that's a husband and wife. That's Melissa and Ty Nowak. They are our transaction managers. So Melissa deals with all of the back end transaction, tasks. And then Ty, he's out in the field working on transactions. So Ty is the one that is scheduling contractors, getting bids, meeting them on site, and then just making sure all of that really just kind of comes together for the sellers and for the buyers. He works on both sides of the transaction. And then we have a marketing team who are also husband and wife. And that is Paige and Casey Jones. And Paige is our daughter. Casey, who is the owner operator of Shutter Zone Media, is her husband. Okay, so stick with me. I know this gets a little crazy. So Tony and I, and then we've got Melissa and Ty, our transaction team, and then we've got Paige and Casey, who are husband and wife, and they are our media specialists, right? Then we've got one lead buyer specialist, who is Katie Ninkovich. She is cousins of Ty Nowak. So Ty, our transaction manager, field manager, and Katie Nowak, Katie Ninkovich, our lead buyer specialist, are related. They're cousins, okay? So everybody somehow on this team is related to one another. And Melissa Nowak and I have been friends for 20 years, as well as Katie Ninkovich and I. We've known each other since we were wee babies, before we could even legally drink in a bar together. So
well, correction, we have recently onboarded a new buyer specialist,
yes.
Mr. Eddie Martin, who feels like family already. He's just on the same frequency, same page with the entire team. So he's the first person of our team now, team of 8 individuals that all work together, who is not either a 20+ year friend or a direct relative of somebody else on the team. So it creates.
But he fits in beautifully. Yeah. He feels like family. For those of you that are with Keller Williams and know what the KPA is, we took him through the entire KPA and career visioning process, and he was a perfect match. And so yes, so even though he is not related to anyone in some way, shape, or form, he definitely fits in just like family. And we just onboarded him this month, and we're super excited to have him with us.
So, and I think that's probably why we were asked to do this call, because obviously husband and wife team, right, who also work with their daughter and son-in-law, who also work with, some of their best friends. What is a KPA is a
it's the Keller personality assessment. So
nice.
Some of you heard of like the DISC analysis and things like that. So it's a little bit different than that. KPA really is just identifying the personality and then the behaviors to see if those behaviors are a good match for whatever job that you're trying to fill within that organization or that team. So it's really matching the behavior to the job itself.
Correct. And after the KPA, which is the initial assessment, there's what's called career visioning. It's like a 5-step interview, deep dive conversation with a potential candidate for your team, that you to make sure if everybody is going to commit their lives together, right? They got to be a good fit for not just the position, but for the team, culturally, philosophy-wise, values, beliefs. It really all needs to make sense. So, yes, hopefully, John, that answers the question. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, sorry for the unprofessional way to ask that. I just noticed that it came up in the chat box too. I was like, oh, I have the same question. So.
You're good. And that's what we actually, kind of wanted to do, is just have you guys ask any questions in the chat. Mm-hmm. We have a couple of topics that we feel are really important, but what's most important is, what do you guys want to hear from us? Like, what are some specific questions you have or experiences that you're going through right now that, we don't claim to be perfect in any way, shape, or form. We've definitely are constantly in a growing stage of our lives. But if we can share some of our experiences and help anyone along the way, that's what we get excited about.
Mhm.
All right, can I ask a
No.
question?
Yes.
All right, so I think you guys are perfect for having kind of this conversation, and I jumped on because I have just as much, let's just say, intertwined relationships.
Yeah.
How do you guys like even my wife, who's an agent in the business, like how do you go home at night and like not just like sit at the dinner table and just talk about real estate? Like how do you like balance that like conversation of your relationship personally and then like
Mhm.
your professional aspect? That's where we struggle.
Yeah,
It's a great question.
it is.
Do you want to?
You can take the lead and I'll jump in with
So I guess the first thing I'll say is when you are extremely passionate about what you're doing and you love what you do, right? Therese and I and the entire, we are in love with real estate. Like we're in love with providing that elevated experience to our clients, creating successful opportunities for our team. So a lot of times we're not talking about work. We're not talking about clients. We're not talking about transactions where it's like, a lot of bitching and moaning and complaining. Sure, that happens once in a while. But it's more talking about the growth and like the good things that are happening and the excitement and, where we're going in the future. So I guess like it is difficult to not talk about real estate all the time. And we do have to remind ourselves like, hey, let's shelve the business talk and focus on more personal stuff. And that really comes with just being aware of when it's starting to become too much and then having that open communication when one person is feeling like, I'm kind of burnt. Like last night, we both got home from a long day. We were excited. We started like gibbering and jabbing about all the stuff's going on. And we both kind of looked at each other like, all right, we're both a little spent from, let's relax, have a glass of wine so having that conversation and open line of communication, but also maybe setting some like cutoff time.
Yeah, so I was gonna actually jump in and talk about that. So we are big believers in time blocking, and we also time block personal time in our schedules, okay? So for us, there's a certain cutoff point where we are no longer time blocking business in our day. We start time blocking quality time or personal activities or things that we want to do, whether it's a fun to do tons of those too, right? So when it comes to setting time aside for our personal time, we time block that into our schedule, because if we don't, it's really easy to just continually have ongoing conversations about real estate. And another thing that we do is, even though we are a husband and wife team, we also time block a touch base for the two of us. Sometimes it's typically once a week, sometimes twice a week, depending on where we are in the season. Obviously, when we get into peak, we probably are going to have more than one touch base a week. But really, that touch base is to kind of get it all out and get everything out on the table and have a bunch of these conversations, and then structure it from there however we need to structure it from our team, so that it's not constantly feels like it's bleeding into our personal lives. And I have no problem shutting it down. I really don't. Like when it's time for me, I have no problem saying, you know what, we're done. We're done having conversations about real estate today. My brain is like, it's gone. So I have no problem saying that. And Tony really has no problem respecting that when I say, listen, it's been a long day. We've had a lot of conversations about real estate. I really need to not talk about it or not think about it right now for the sake of my sanity and for the sake of my health, because I say it's unhealthy. It's just unhealthy to not have other topics of conversation or just not have that separation from, real estate conversations 24/7. So, if that kind of answered your question, I would also say awareness. Sometimes we are very hyper aware of when real estate conversations are bleeding into our personal lives, and we just shut it down. We say, okay, that's enough. We're spending too much time talking about this right now.
Yeah, and that's when we hear the one last thing. That's a very popular statement at the end of all right,
We're done.
Then we're done.
One last thing, and then we're done.
Then we're done.
Yeah.
So, great question.
Did that really help answer that question?
It helped me kind of refocus on like how Megan and I really, I'm more focused on like, because Megan and I work together so closely, is like, how do we maintain that and keep focus on like our relationship, you know? Because it's so easy for me to come home, especially like in my role, to be like, all right, Megs, how many contacts did you make today? What listing appointments did you go on? You know, like, and like, she's like, shut up. I don't want the accountability, you know?
So
yes, we're going to talk about that today too.
So since that came up, let's talk about that, because that is one of the most challenging things that we have found, and that probably a lot of couples that work together find is.
And I wouldn't even just say couples, like, right, if you are a rainmaker and you have like a
sibling or
a sibling or
son
a son or a daughter or whatever on your team, right?
So, and it's very something that Sharice and I have had to work on very hard, because we're not just business partners and married, we're also best friends. Like, a lot of people like think that it's crazy, but I mean, we get a lot like, oh my God, you guys work together. It's like, no, we don't just work together. Like, we love working together. We do everything together. We're, you know, she is best friend. So it's very easy when you're everything to one another to want that accountability from your partner. But honestly, you need to have accountability somewhere else. So you need to have an outside coach. You need to have an outside mentor. You need to have an outside, you can even just find a workout partner, right? Maybe a fellow agent that is on the same page that you are, production-wise and philosophy-wise and stuff. Because Sharice, the dynamic of our team, Sharice is the CEO, okay? I am the director of sales, and I'm also the lead listing agent. So yes, she's the boss lady, okay? And so, yeah, there's accountability to her as the CEO, but I also have to have accountability somewhere else. Accountability there, but Sharice has multiple coaches outside of the team, so that accountability piece is not your responsibility as the significant other, because that can become very, very challenging, right? Especially when personal stuff bleeds into business, and business, if there's tension in your relationship because of something on a personal level, and you try to have an accountability conversation about production, there's no way that any human being is emotionally evolved enough to separate that.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to like, did you do your calls today? I don't know. Did you pick up your underwear off the bathroom floor? It's like, whoa, you know, where did that come from? But that's what you'll experience when you work with your significant other. So,
and what ends up happening is that it ends up being counterproductive, right? So
correct.
Yes, there is still a certain level of accountability there. We each have separate coaches. I have two coaches. Tony has one, and actually we're actually looking into picking up a max coach probably starting in June. So the best way that you can grow, whether you're an individual agent, whether you are running a team, whether you're on a team, it really does not matter. Whether you're executive leadership team, right? It's just a fundamental to growth. But if separate that accountability so that business really is business and personal really is personal. And, you know, that's just the thing sometimes with business, right? Like, we need to separate our personal lives from our business lives. And so having that outside coach not answering to your husband, or vice versa, which sometimes, as he mentioned, it's received well, but it can really start to if it's not received well, it can really start to dampen not only your business relationship, but it can bleed into that personal relationship. And that's something that we don't ever want to experience. Like, we enjoy one another, we enjoy running a team, and we want to keep it that way. So it's best for us to just figure out, we did figure it out the hard way, but we did figure it out. That's the point. We failed forward with that one. So just having those outside coaches and accountability really helps keep us on track and, keeps a healthy business and personal relationship.
Yeah, great. Great stuff. Good combo. All right. Any other specific questions or experiences that you're going through right now that you maybe could use some insight on?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit back to when you were talking about having one-on-ones with each other. So CJ and we have one-on-ones with each other, but they never happen as scheduled. He'll do one-on-ones on time perfectly with everyone else, but we kind of have this like, oh, well, it's just with you, so we'll talk about it later when we get home. Or, like, it's always the one that gets kind of rescheduled or pushed out of the way. Or it's weird too because he leads all the other like appointments, but like I lead the team meeting. And so we're always kind of dancing around like, well, who's leading the one-on-one like with each other? So I feel like I don't need to prep for it because it's his role. And then he's like, well, you prep for the other thing, so why aren't you prepping for it? How do you handle that?
I mean, we struggle with that.
So I will say too, Shelly, at first, our one-on-ones, we were doing the same thing. Like every team one-on-one, no problem. We were there every single time. But then when it came to our one-on-one, I'm sorry, I've got to draft an amendment. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a fire that needs to be put out. So we did struggle.
Hey, I have to throw in this load of laundry. Or it was like there was seriously, there's things that came up. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay. So we did struggle with that a lot initially. But I guess the best way to put it is that we just stayed committed. And as we stayed committed to keeping that in our time block, right? Even though for a while we would push it aside, but we always had it there. And then as things got busier, then we brought on another agent, right? So that was like a big thing. It was like, well, we have to really touch base now. Like, not to say that we don't need it with our family members and our friends, but now more than ever, we were like, we really need to make sure that we're touching base because this is a new person that is really, really, really like their success depends on like how we lay the foundation in the first 90 days. So like, there can't be any like, well, we'll figure it out as we go, or we'll talk about it while I'm cooking dinner type thing. So that really forced us into making sure we stuck to that time block. But also as things got busier and busier, we saw the necessity to make sure that we were staying committed to our one-on-ones, just strictly out of the sheer amount of like workload that was starting to like come at us, right? So it was okay, I think we thought, to wing it for a little while and just kind of have casual conversations about things, but it was really out of necessity that forced us to say, okay, we can no longer make excuses about these touch bases. Like, we have to stay committed to them. We have to do them. If we're showing up for the team, we have to show up for one another. If we don't want this to spill into our personal lives, we have to stay committed to these touch bases and to one another. Yeah. And if we want to stay committed to making sure that, our newest agent on the team is having the most success that he can have and launching his career the right way, then we have to stay committed to these touch bases.
Yeah. And just a couple of things to add to that. What's very interesting, and again, a lot of this is about becoming self-aware. And some people call it, awareness, being present, being in the moment, being mindful of realizing that we do things that we're unconscious of, how we interact with each other, how we respond to each other. And it becomes very ingrained and habitual. And so taking those moments and asking yourself why, okay? So if you're super committed to all of your obligations for your clients, and you're super committed to all of your obligations with your team, but you're not super committed to your business obligations with your spouse, you have to start asking yourself, why? Okay. And a lot of times it comes to like, we love each other, but there may not be as much business respect as there is with someone else that is not your spouse. Because you know that if you F up or if you drop the ball, your spouse loves you, they're going to forgive you, and they're not going anywhere, hopefully, right? Whereas if you mess up with a client, what could happen? You could lose that client. You mess up with a member, an agent, you have a team member who doesn't feel like they're getting the coaching, the accountability, they don't have your undivided attention, what could happen? You could lose that member of your team.
And your reputation and all of that, right? Like it's
correct. So it's you have to start asking yourself, well, why? Why don't we have that same level of commitment to one another for our strategy sessions as we do for our clients or our team? A lot of times it's because there is no fear of loss. There is no worry or concern of them taking it personally and potentially leaving the team or not wanting to work with you. So then you become more lackadaisical about those commitments. So having that open line of communication of like, hey, why do we do this? You know, and we really owe it to each other to have the same level of respect and the same level of commitment for our time block, for our strategy sessions and our commitments that we do for our clients and we do for our team. Otherwise, at the core, the fundamental essence of your being, you're not being true to yourself, and you're not doing the age-old saying, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So if you have that commitment to your team, you got that commitment to your clients, but you don't have it to your spouse, eventually that's a weak chink in the armor, right? That's going to negatively impact other areas of your business. And to have that conversation, be like, this is going to negatively impact other things, and recommit to it. Have it scheduled, have it be consistent. Sharice and I touch base every Monday from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. We have structure to our strategy session. First, we talk about our team meeting and what that looks like for Tuesday. Then we go into coaching and accountability for me as a director of sales. And then there's coaching and accountability for me as the listing agent. So not just be like, all right, let's get together and let's just talk about business. You know, having a set time, a set day, and a structure is really going to help, because you'll feel more productive. You'll feel like you're extracting more value, and that will get you excited. I look forward to hearing what's going on every single week when we get together.
And if I could just quickly say one last thing on that, you know, I think in the beginning of all this, right? So we've had our team for 4 years now. And most of that 4 years, really up until December of 2019, I was also still in production mode. I was a sales agent as well. I have slowly started to remove myself as a sales agent and into the role of the CEO, where I'm overseeing everything. And so that was really an eye-opening experience for me, because I stopped looking at things as they were happening, and I started to look at things from 30,000 feet away, right? So once I started to do that, it forced me to kind of look at this brand and this team, the Mind Right Realty Group, you know, with the end in mind. You know, we can't scale something and we can't grow something if we're not beginning with the end in mind. And if I'm looking out and working backwards from there, all of this stuff, again, just became necessity. Like, these touch bases had to start happening, because there was no way that we were going to continue to grow a team to the size that we wanted to grow it if we weren't communicating with each other at least once a week, right? It just would not have been, it would have been very chaotic. We probably would have ended up doing double, triple the amount of work to get to a goal. So I really had to take a step back and say, okay, if I'm looking at this thing and I'm starting with the end in mind, and I'm looking at it from 30,000 feet, and I want to get here, I have to start small here. So that's really another thing that really forced us to make sure that we were, having these touch bases and showing up for one another and communicating with one another, because we weren't just thinking about now, we were thinking about 5 years, 3 years,
And
1 year from now.
and
Hey, Shelly, can I just add a little context to that?
Yeah.
So this is probably, Megan's probably going to kill me for sharing this, but Megan and I had a very similar thing. Like, I'll be honest, I totally took it for granted, our relationship. And I was always like, well, she'll just be there, right? And I know what worked for us is like, we literally, if we set a time, like Megan is, Charlie, what are you doing? Put your phone away. Here's your laptop. It's going in the drawer. Like, someone needs to be the person to like remove the take it for granted mentality and be like, listen, this is what we're working on. We're, doing this and the other. And that's totally helped us. Like, even for me, who took my spouse for granted, like helped me totally reground my ability to be like, okay, I need to make this a priority, because someone has to be that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you just hit on some really great points. A couple, like number one, if you have a strategy session scheduled at say 3 p.m., I start getting ready for that at 2:30, right? Otherwise, if I'm still, and I'm not perfect, there's times where, I'm real close, but I'm not going to follow up with a prospect at 2:45 p.m., knowing if I connect with that person, it's probably going to be a 20, 30-minute conversation, right? So properly planning time blocking and being aware of that white space in between your time blocks, is really important, so that you have the time, like Charlie just said, to shut it down and to remove distractions and remove what's called, friction in between you and the person that you're sitting down with. If you have your phone and your laptop and, there's a client who is reaching back out to you, or a team member who's having a challenge, you need to really, really protect that time block and bunker down and be prepared to have a very present, intentional, and focused conversation so that you can create the most success and most value within it. Also, Sharice hit a great point. And Charlie did too, establishing defined roles and responsibilities. So important. And Sharice and I, so prior to like December of last year, Sharice and I both did a little bit of everything. Like, for real. So we were both kind of working with buyers, but more focused on listings. And we were both kind of working with listings. We would do appointments together. Sharice would do staging, but I'd handle contracts and negotiations. But sometimes clients were reaching out to her, reaching out to me, right? We were both kind of coaching the team. We were both kind of running the team. We were both kind of lead genning. And we had one of our coaches, really, like, it took a couple hours. We mapped out everything that each of us does on a whiteboard and our different roles and responsibilities as they were right now. And then we talked about what are you guys the best at, and what are you guys most passionate about, and what do you have the most fun doing? Sharice hates lead generation. She doesn't like calling people, and she doesn't like calling clients to schedule appointments. Sharice doesn't like contracts. I love smiling and dialing. Like, I dig it. It's just my thing. I like contracts, right?
So weird.
Yeah, it is. So really being able to be like, hey, this is something that you're better at, you're more passionate about, and you will have more success with. That's going to become your thing. And that's when we've decided, wow, I'm really better at being the director of sales. Sharice is better at being the CEO, because she connects with other things on a different level. The culture, the vision, the creating the environment and the fertile ground for success for our agents. Whereas she's more macro, I'm more micro, right? I'm really into like the scripts and the transaction management process and contingency, deadlines, all that stuff. So being able to separate those and work within your strengths and protect each other.
And really defining your role.
Defining your roles, working with your strengths. And so if I see Sharice starting to interact with someone who reaches out on Facebook, because she gets a lot more people that contact her on Facebook, and I see her starting to have an exchange, we'll stop and then we'll be like, hey, that's taking you away from your role as a CEO.
Mhm.
Send them to me right away, so I can take that off your plate and I can, have that be my responsibility. Just like when she starts, because as a CEO, she's involved in all the finance, budget, P&L and stuff like that. So I'll find myself still like doing some of that, and we have to stop ourselves, and she has to be like, no, that's my role. That's taking you out of your role as a director of sales. And so identifying those roles, responsibilities, getting clear about them, and then having that open communication when you see the other person starting to slip or you see that they need your help.
In my defense, I will say I do hate contracts, hate them. But in my defense, I'm really great with warm sphere.
Correct, yes.
I am not good with cold sphere. Like my palms are sweating just thinking about calling a stranger right now, okay? So in my defense, I love talking to our forever clients in our warm sphere, and all of those people. Care calls were great when all of this was going on, right? Because I'm really good at that piece of the business, not great at the cold sphere lead generation type of business, right? So just wanted to point that out, but I do hate contracts, I will say.
Accurate statement.
Accurate statement.
Accurate statement. Any other questions?
How about when you
How
get
much time
how about when you get your big group together? When Casey and Paige and the whole crew is together.
Yeah.
Like, how do you find outlets for doing things as a family versus,
And it's interesting that because business always kind of comes up, right?
Yeah.
And again though, when you're excited and you're passionate and you love what you do, it's okay to have you shouldn't be ashamed of having business conversations when everyone is in the same business. I'll give you a perfect example. If I go hang out with my cousin Kevin, he's an attorney, guess what, like the majority of our conversations tend to be, at least 50% is, hey, how's business? Like, how's your work doing? Like, people naturally talk about their profession and what's going on in their lives a lot, right? So it's okay to have those conversations. Two things though, if it's all you talk about, you have to curb it and you have to find creative ways to transition this conversation and ask better questions of one another. Ask better questions of how's it going, right? Like, what do you guys got planned non-work related this weekend? What are some big wins you guys are having? Like, we talk a lot about our health and wellness. We talk a lot about our personal growth and development. We talk a lot about music. We talk a lot about comedy shows. We all love, different shows like The Office or, what's another one that we're watching, right? Community. And so like, you can have those conversations. You just have to be intentional about it and remind yourself to ask those questions and talk about that stuff.
So,
it's also harder for us because people don't know this. We live with Casey and Paige in our duplex.
Yeah, they live.
So
above
they live upstairs. So not only do we work together, we also live together. So that's fun.
It is fun. And I will just say this. So, Charlie, you were just talking about like, how do we, when our team comes together? So we just added something, actually literally just did this, right? So we have added to our calendars on Mondays at 9 a.m. for 30 minutes. It's literally called a coffee connection with our team. And it is not to talk about business. It's not to talk about transactions or what's going on or what transactions blowing up or a new lead that just came in, or I've got a buyer for you or a seller for you. We literally just added a 30-minute coffee connection on Monday mornings. It's not mandatory. It's whoever has the time to jump in this, during this 30-minute time block to just catch up with one another and talk about life and how are your kids and what's been going on. Have you guys been doing stuff around the house with, being quarantined for 30 minutes or so we really just wanted to put something in the schedule for 30 minutes that had nothing to do with work, literally nothing to do with work, just to see how everybody was doing.
So that's a great point. And I'm actually having, like, as we talk about this stuff, I'm having like moments of realization. a huge part of our culture in our team and in our family, and something that we knew from the very beginning, and it's why we named our team the Mind Right Realty Group, is that we are super uber committed to personal growth and development in all areas of our life. Okay. Faith, family, finance, fitness, fun, call it the 5F philosophy, right? All of these things. And if someone's going to be on our team, they got to vibe with that. Like, we are weirdos and we love it and we embrace it. People in our office know, like, before our team meetings, we meditate together as a team. We talk a lot about, on a spiritual level, like our energy, our frequencies, like how we're all vibing. And so some people think that's a little weird, and that's okay. We love it. We embrace it. And so it's very easy for us to have non-real estate related conversations, because there's so much more of a focus as a team culturally than just real estate. Mm-hmm. It's not just like production and how are we doing and how do we become better realtors. It's like, hey guys, who's like on like a new like nutritional kick right now? Like, there was a while like we were all experimenting with eliminating carbohydrates from our diets, and we were talking about the energy levels and the changes that we felt from that. Our daughter has Hashimoto, which is an autoimmune disorder. Melissa Nowak, our transaction manager, also has a similar challenge with autoimmune. So like having these conversations about, our mind, our body, our spirit, as well as our business, helps to have really natural and organic conversations aside from real estate. And that's also where you have the best conversations, and you connect with people at the deepest levels when you hear about, their walks through nature, where they're, completely connecting and present in the moment, and what that experience was like and where they did it. And just so that stuff's really cool for us. And it's something that really helps us escape the constant real estate, conversation wheel.
Yeah. And I would just say probably, if you're running a team now more than ever, it's going to be really important. We spent so much time when this all happened reaching out to our clients and making sure, care calls, clients and friends and family and everybody was doing well. And we were still working as a team, but we realized, like, hey, we're calling all of these other people, right, to find out how they're doing. But how is our team doing on a personal level with all of this, right? So that's why it was so important for us to integrate this 30-minute coffee connection, so that we could just connect with one another and feel somewhat normal while all this is going on. Making sure that everybody's okay, making sure that they're not struggling, making sure that, their minds are right, making sure that they're not having any challenges with a friend, family, or loved one that is somehow affected by what's going on with COVID-19. So it was just it was like, hey, if we're doing this for our clients and for co-brokes, why aren't we doing this for our team, right?
Yeah.
So it was really important for us to just get something on the schedule, 30 minutes. Let's have some coffee. Let's talk about life. I like to always bump some music before we do these things. So sometimes I get on and we're dancing or we're singing, it's just something to really just change the energy up.
Yeah.
And make sure that everybody is feeling healthy mentally and physically. It's very important.
And what we have found is that it's like any challenges typically that are happening in the business are rooted somewhere deeper, mm-hmm. right? So if someone's frustrated, if someone is not having the success, if someone is feeling overwhelmed, a lot of times it's deeper than that surface of like, well, what script are you using? Or what system or process are you using? It comes down to like understanding more about them, their psychology, their philosophies, their schedule, their habits, mm-hmm. and working on those things. So by having conversations about the human being and the individual, you're actually doing more of a benefit for your business than just having conversations about business. Mm-hmm. And
I realize that's not easy, right? Like everybody, it's not easy for everybody to connect like that. And it is different because we have a very different dynamic with our team. And so I know that's not easy for everybody to have some of those personal relationships, or you've got people that want to make sure that business is business and personal is personal, and those things are separated.
Yeah.
But I would just say, now more than ever, it's probably the most important to, in some way, shape, or form, just have a small personal connection. It's just amazing. You don't realize what people are going through. And I even went through it. I didn't think that I would have any challenges with this quarantine in terms of being stuck at home. Like we had such crazy busy schedules all the time with social engagements and family engagements and work engagements that I was like, this is going to be great. Like I'm going to be forced to stay inside now. And I love that. I don't have to like go here and go there and do this and do that. And, about it was like about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I don't know what was going on, but the quarantine, I think it was a combination of like the quarantine and being at home all the time. And like the weather was just gloomy and rainy, and I could feel it. Like I could just feel it weighing on me. And mentally, I was like, I was not having good conversations. Like I was going down a rabbit hole of terrible conversations to myself. And it made me think, like, if I'm doing this, right? Like if I'm going really hard and I'm pouring into my team, and then when that is no longer there, I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, then they must be feeling this too. And so, I would just say, you just don't know who could be feeling a certain way with what's going on right now. And if it's hard for you to have those personal connections, even if it's just one question that you throw out to a team member once a week, just find a way to connect with them at least, once a week, so that you are ensuring that everybody is physically and mentally fit while this is happening.
Yeah. A big thing that Teresa and I focus on, and we recommend not just for those that are, either running or want to run a family business, but anyone who is doing anything in life, is, focusing on your reason why, and making sure that's present and that is visible, and that is, the true.
It's the driver.
It's the driver.
Yeah.
It's the engine that's pulling the train. Simon Sinek, Start With Why, great book. And there's a lot of other good information out there about, how to really dig deep. So our reason why we do what we do is really doesn't have anything
Thanks,
to do.
Charlie.
Doesn't have anything to do with real estate. It's about making a positive impact in people's lives. It's about changing people's lives, from the clients that we're helping accomplish their goals, to the culture that we're creating for our team, the positive environment that we are going to continue to provide to other people, to being a breath of fresh air of positivity and abundance to our co-brokes and our professional partners. Like that's our mission, and our reason why we get up every day is to infect this world with goodness and positivity and gratitude. And so when you operate with that in mind, it makes all these other things a lot easier, because as you start to, and we all spiral, right? We all got junk in the trunk and baggage that we carry around. Yeah. And when we start to spiral, having that self-awareness of acknowledging, like Sharice just said, acknowledging this is some serious negative self-talk. Mm-hmm. What's going on right now? What's triggering it? But more important, is this in line with my big reason why I do what I do? And is this in line with my true core values and beliefs? And that allows you to communicate with your partner and your family and your business partners on an elevated level. And it doesn't prevent conflict. There's no way to prevent that, right? There is no perfection, but it definitely helps handle those challenges better.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Is this all making sense, or are we just rambling? You guys are muted, so I don't know.
You guys have so much good content, and just like listening to you speak, the way just talking about mindset, it all just loops together, and I really appreciate your point of view, because I think it's valuable.
Yeah. Thank you.
you.
We appreciate that. Can we
I
talk?
agree. And I was just going to say, as being an outsider, you know, your overall way of interacting with one another, extremely respectful on a personal and professional level. My wife and I work together as well. She's not a licensed agent, but as you know, there's so much that she can help with outside of all of the paperwork, and she hates all of that. So she is our CEO. She doesn't wear that shirt quite yet, but she's in charge of the oversight and pushing everything moving forward. And you guys have created this balance and respect for one another that is just it's infectious. So it's awesome.
Awesome.
Aw,
Thanks,
thank
John.
you.
Is it cool if we talk a little bit more about that as we kind of wind down here? So thank you first off so much for those comments, because that really means the world to us to know that what we're trying to convey is having some sort of impact, right? What I can tell you is that that type of approach, those types of philosophies, and especially instilling that into your team and into your kids and now into our grandbaby, it's not something that happens overnight, and it's not something that happens spontaneously. We are constantly bombarded with so much negativity in this world. Constant, from friends, from family, from the media, from co-brokes, from people at the group, like everywhere. It's just so many people are constantly vibrating on such a negative frequency and just holding on to this negative emotional home. Okay, I know I sound really weird, but just bear with me. The only way that you can elevate yourself and your mindset and your philosophies and your values, because it all starts with your mind and your thoughts, which then determine your attitude, which then impact your actions, and your actions are what deliver the results. So people are looking to do the right activity to get the right results, but they haven't even started focusing on their mindset, right? So the only way to brainwash yourself in the good ways and to undo all this conditioning that we've had from our parents and from, you know, school systems and all this stuff is to commit 100% to daily personal growth and development. Audios, videos, books, trainings, seminars. Like, you have to constantly introduce new information to change your paradigms. Otherwise, you're going to continue to operate at the same level, and you can't get where you want to go if you want to get farther ahead, if you keep doing the things that you've done to get where you are now. You have to grow in order to grow.
Yeah, that quote, right? The definition of insanity is, you know, beating your head on a brick wall, but expecting, what is it? I always screw these up. I screw these up all the time. You're not beating your head on a brick wall.
Doing the same thing and expecting different results.
I don't know where somebody beat their head on a brick wall from.
It's a good example. If you hit your head against a brick wall and expect
Coco
it not
Chanel
to hurt,
said something about that, right? I don't know.
We got this.
We got this, guys. You guys are getting this stuff.
Yeah.
But the definition of insanity, right? Like doing something over and over and over and then expecting a different result. And so, you know, again, for us, it's just always about continual growth, because we would end up really, if we're not getting somewhere, it's because of us. Like, we're becoming our own.
Can't hear you guys. All of a sudden.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. It kind of cut out.
Okay. Am I back? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Yes. So definition of insanity. Yeah. Nothing to do with beating your head on a brick wall.
No, yeah. Well, I mean, that is kind of insane. But you know, and that's what people ask, like, how do you guys work together, live together, hang out all the time together? And same thing, like our daughter and our son-in-law are like our best friends. Like, it's so, and people wonder, like, how do you don't you get sick of each other? Don't you do this and that and the other thing? Or how do you manage? And we have challenges like anyone else.
Yeah,
right?
We're not perfect. We definitely don't claim to be perfect.
Right. But when you constantly are focused on becoming the best version of yourself, it makes life a lot easier. Mm-hmm. When you're constantly learning more effective forms of communication, more effective forms of gratitude. When you're constantly working on how do I create more happiness for myself? Like, how do I do my best to stay in a continued state of happiness and gratitude, right? Through meditation, through presence, through, all these different things that you can do, your nutrition, your exercise, all these different things. Like, we just made the decision that we want to be the best versions of ourselves that we can for each other, for our family, for our clients. And that is really the ultimate solution to any challenge, in my opinion, is work harder on yourself than you work on anything else, and all the other stuff becomes easier. There's one thing I will tell you, though. I will tell you this. When you work with family, understand and accept this fundamental principle. Your family and closest friends will do things for you. Their level of commitment will go above and beyond anyone else that you could ever hire or bring on board. Okay. Our daughter, son-in-law, our best friend, they would swim through a sea of lava to help us get something done if we were like, guys, this is what we have to do. But then you have the counterbalance
The
of
other
that
extreme
is that they also will say and do things that no employee would ever do. Okay.
Or say.
Right? Or say. There are, like, seriously. And you have to be okay with that. Have the conversation and address it,
Acknowledge
right?
it,
And
yeah.
acknowledge it and have open communication and loving and mindful, like, communication if you're feeling a certain way or feel like something needs to be, handled. But you have to understand, like, our daughter will say things to me that no marketing manager should say to a director of sales. I'm serious, like, flat out, like, but she will also do things that I could never expect expect a marketing manager that I'm hiring outside to do. There's just not that level of love and commitment. But with that love and commitment does come that, that personal side of things that you can't separate. People separate, business and personal. You can't if you work with your spouse, with your kids. Like, it is intertwined. It's figuring out the methods and the solutions and the communication so that you can balance them or counterbalance them rather, and have success and be happy, because you could be successful and not be happy.
Yeah.
You could be crushing it production wise and revenue wise, but if your wife hates you and your daughter's unhappy and your best friends are no longer your friends, they're just business partners, you failed. Doesn't matter. All the money in the world doesn't make up for those relationships.
And I would just say too, if this sounds like you or something you're experiencing or a vision that you have of either bringing on a spouse or, a sibling or, a daughter or son, be patient. That's the biggest piece of advice that I could give on this. Like, have a plan, but be patient, because it's not going to happen overnight. This for us, it didn't happen overnight,
And we were in business together prior to real estate as well.
Yeah.
So it's literally been,
We're nuts.
how many years? 8 years, 9 years?
Well, we'll be 9 years together in November, 5 years married in September. So I would say 12.
Yeah, 2012. So since 2012, we've been business partners. And we're still figuring shit out.
Yeah, you'll always be figuring stuff out. And that's okay. But just know that it doesn't happen overnight. Like, I'm not a very patient person. And yet I understand that, some things, need cultivation. It's just the way it is. It's like, you don't plant a seed and then get a beautiful plant the next day. Like, it takes time for that seed to grow. And when it does, it turns into something beautiful. So I have to constantly remind myself to be patient, because I'm a high D. So I want to just, let's go, let's get it done. I want results now, right? But it doesn't work that way. So just be patient and know that, if you continually work on these things and you put a plan in place, that seed, it will come to fruition, and it'll be a beautiful thing. It'll be an ever changing and evolving thing. And you need to be okay with that too, right? Just because you put a plan in place and you think it's set in stone, it doesn't necessarily work that way. You know, everything has to constantly be changing. Life is about change, and we have to change with those things. You have to be okay with that evolution of the process.
When I was journaling this morning, I had something kind of come up and I wrote it down, and it was just a real short statement that we wanted to kind of leave you guys with, and that's fail forward and laugh out loud in the process. Failure is inevitable.
Make sure you dance.
And dance it out, right?
Dance it out. Don't care what you look like. Hi, cutie.
But you just accept that failure is part of the process. Fail forward, get excited about it, learn from it, and laugh. Like, we make each other laugh every single day. Like, if we're not laughing, we got to do a checkup from the neck up.
We were just cracking each other up last night.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I caught her doing choreography in the kitchen while she was like, I
was on my way to get a cup of coffee.
She was like getting a cup of coffee.
I wasn't doing the robot, but I busted out some choreography, and
I lost my mind. It was the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. So laugh out loud, fail forward, continue to work on yourself, open communication, find outside coaches and mentors to assist with the process. Be patient, love on each other, be grateful for one another, because that's what really it's all about.
We have 2 minutes. Does anybody have any questions or comments or insight or anything that they would like us to expand on or share?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I really appreciate everybody taking an hour out of their busy schedules to spend some time with us today. This was really super fun. And I'm glad we could give you any insight that we could from the best of our perspectives anyway. And it's just really nice to see everybody and, you know, connect with people again, even though it's virtually. It's just nice to have that human connection somehow. So
absolutely. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate you. And then I'll put our cell phone numbers in here in case if anyone wants to reach out individually, like maybe you've got a question or concern that you weren't comfortable with talking about, openly here. We're here to help and provide value to everybody and anybody. John, regardless of brokerage, like, it's the culture that we have and that Keller Williams have, is that all ships rise with the tide.
Yeah.
Like, if we all become amazing, it's just going to help everybody, in our industry and in our community.
That's right. It's abundance. We believe in it, and that's the Keller Williams culture. And we have no problem sharing with anybody outside of our brokerage.
Exactly. 9300. Okay. Our cell numbers are in there. Shoot us a text if you want to connect individually. Although we won't really be available today. Technically, Wednesdays are our day off.
But I will be in a budget model mastermind today.
Yeah, but we're taking off. We're taking off like 3 days for the holiday weekend. So we're going to be working today a little bit. Reach out if you need anything, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
I appreciate
guys.
you.
Have a great Wednesday.
Take care.